Welcome back to Frostbitten Tales, where shadows linger longer than the light, and every story has teeth waiting to bite. Tonight I'll tell you the story of a new mother, her newborn child, and the loyal dog who tried to protect them from something ancient, small, and hungry. This is the story of the Crawlspace. My name is Emily Carter. 3 months ago, I moved into a little house at the edge of town. It wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, a sagging porch, and a crawlspace beneath the floor that the realtor avoided mentioning. But it was mine. A fresh start for me, for Noah, for Daisy, my shepherd mix. The first few days were almost peaceful. I unpacked boxes, arranging the nursery carefully. I even got acquainted with Mrs. Whitaker, my next-door neighbor. Older woman, sharp eyes, always carrying a cup of tea. Always asking me, was everything okay? Noah cooed in his little bassinet, stretching tiny arms toward the mobile I'd hung above him. Daisy patrolled the yard constantly, sniffing every corner, ears alert, tail wagging. At night, I would sit in the rocking chair watching Noah sleep, singing lullabies to soothe him into dreams. But soon, something felt off. It started with small things. At first, I dismissed them. A door left slightly ajar when I was certain I had closed it. A floorboard that creaked under no weight at all. Toys rearranged in odd patterns overnight, angular and precise. Daisy would circle certain rooms, growling low, her fur bristling, refusing to go near the vents. Then came the first night I noticed the eyes. Noah's eyes. As I tucked him into the bassinet, Daisy growled again, low, guttural, and unrelenting. "Daisy." "What is it, girl?" I whispered. Her ears pressed flat, body tense. She barked at the floorboards, snapping. "Stop it, Daisy." "There's nothing there," I muttered, though my voice shook. I bent down to check under the crib. Nothing. Just shadows stretching unnaturally along the walls. That night, Noah's behavior grew stranger. He stared at the vents in the corner, giggling and reaching toward shadows I couldn't see. "Mommy?" he cooed. I leaned closer, brushing his hair from his forehead. "Hey, sweetheart. Who are you looking at?" Noah's smile widened, unnerving in its innocence. "Up there," he said, pointing. I swallowed hard. There was nothing there. The next few nights the tension only grew. I would hear soft scratching beneath the floorboards, almost like tiny claws dragging along the wood. Daisy would growl constantly, sometimes yipping at thin air. Noah would coo or laugh quietly, staring at empty corners, his tiny hands reaching toward nothing. Once, I found a doll from his nursery in the middle of the living room, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. I didn't move it, just stared at it for a long time, wondering if I had done it in a half-sleep daze. But Daisy had been in the room the entire time, pacing nervously. I tried to convince myself it was stress, hormones, exhaustion. That's what I told myself. But deep down, a knot of fear twisted tighter every night. There was something here. Something small. Something hiding. Something watching. One night as I settled into bed, Daisy pressed against my side, growling and staring at the vent beneath the nursery floor. Noah, asleep, twitched slightly, reaching out again toward the darkness. I whispered, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." But I didn't feel okay, not even for a second, and as I drifted into a restless sleep, I knew. Whatever was in this house, it wasn't just watching anymore. It was waiting. Then came the night I heard it. A soft giggle, high-pitched, childlike, and wrong. "Emily!" I froze, my breath snagging in my throat. "Who's there?" I whispered. No answer, just scratching, scratch, scratch, scratch. It came from beneath the crib, circling, dragging, sharp against the wood. Daisy's growl deepened, her teeth snapping at air, eyes locked on the crib's shadowed underside. I scooped Noah into my arms, pressing him close, whispering into his soft hair. "It's okay. I've got you." But even as I rocked him, my pulse hammering, the scratching kept moving, pacing, waiting. And in the cold silence between each scrape, I could almost hear it breathing. Then the vent cover rattled, just once. I turned sharply, too late. Something small darted across the nursery floor, fast, pale, no bigger than a toddler, but twisted in a way my eyes refused to make sense of. I caught only a flash of a hunched shape, a too long arm, a face that wasn't a face. Daisy lunged, snapping at where it had vanished, pawing at the vent until her nails screeched. I stood frozen, Noah crying in my arms, my heart crashing against my ribs. That was the first time I saw it, not a shadow, not a dream. It was real. Something lived in this house with us, and it wanted my child. The next morning, I must have looked half dead. My eyes were sunken, hands trembling as I stood on the porch, watching Daisy pace the yard like a sentry. That's when I noticed Mrs. Whitaker standing in her garden, always carrying her chipped porcelain teacup. She looked at me for a long moment, her lips pressing into a thin line. Her eyes lingered on me, as though she could see the fear crawling just beneath my skin. She sipped her tea, calm as ever. She crossed the fence, her gaze flicking toward my house. "Emily," she said softly, "you look exhausted." Her eyes narrowing. "Is there anything wrong?" I forced a weak smile. "Just not sleeping well," I said. But she shook her head. "No, it's more than that. Daisy's been restless, hasn't she? And the baby, staring at corners, laughing at nothing." My breath caught. How did you? "I've seen it before," she interrupted, her voice dropping low. "This house, that crawl space." She leaned in, her words barely above a whisper. "You saw one, didn't you? A gnome." I blinked, unsure if I'd heard her right. "A gnome?" Mrs. Whitaker nodded slowly. Her face was tight, drained of color. "Not the kind from storybooks. Not the ones people paint in their gardens. The real ones are different. Old, mean. They hide in the walls, in the dark. They wait until you're too tired to notice, and then they take what they want." Even with what I experienced last night, I tried to dismiss Mrs. Whitaker. I laughed nervously, though it sounded hollow in my throat. "Come on, it's just some kind of animal, right? A big rat, maybe." Her hand shot out and grabbed mine, cold and strong. "No, Emily, they don't forgive. And once they've chosen a family, they don't stop until they've had their fill." A shiver ran down my spine. I wanted to pull away, but her grip tightened. "I can help you," she whispered, "if you let me." Daisy barked suddenly from the porch, hackles up, teeth bared at the crawlspace vent. The sound tore through the morning calm like a warning bell. Mrs. Whitaker's eyes followed the dog's gaze, and she whispered one last thing that made my blood run cold. "Don't let it see your fear. That's what it feeds on first." That night, the house felt different, heavier. Every creak of the floorboards seemed sharper, closer. Daisy paced from room to room, never settling, her growls vibrating low in her chest. I tried to calm myself with tea, but my hands shook too badly to hold the cup steady. Mrs. Whitaker's words echoed in my head. They don't forgive. They don't stop until they've had their fill. Noah had trouble sleeping. He kept stirring in the crib, little whimpers escaping between breaths. I hummed softly, rocking him until his eyes fluttered shut. But the moment I set him down, the baby monitor hissed to life. At first it was just static, then faint, breathy words. "Mine, mine, mine." I lunged forward and snatched up the monitor, heart racing. The voice stopped instantly, leaving only the hollow crackle of dead air. Then came the scratching. Not faint this time, violent, angry, directly beneath the crib. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Daisy erupted, teeth gnashing, hurling herself at the floorboards as if she could tear through to whatever was beneath. I grabbed Noah, clutching him to my chest as the mattress above the crib jolted upward, as though something had shoved it from below. My scream caught in my throat. Then, two tiny hands. Pale, wrinkled. They pushed through the slat of the crib, fingers curling and reaching for me. Daisy snapped at them, biting the air, snarling with a savagery I'd never seen before. The hands withdrew, retreating into the shadows beneath the crib. The scratching retreated too, dragging away toward the crawlspace vent. The room fell silent again, except for my ragged breathing and Daisy's low, trembling growl. I stood there clutching Noah, unable to move, unable to breathe, because in that moment I understood. Mrs. Whitaker had been right. This wasn't just a whispers or shadows. It wanted us. And tonight, it had almost taken him. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those little hands reaching through the crib, clutching for Noah. By dawn, Daisy hadn't moved from her post at the nursery door. Her eyes were bloodshot, her muzzle flecked with foam. I knew she wouldn't be enough. I needed help. So I went back to Mrs. Whitaker. She was already sitting on her porch when I arrived, as though she'd been waiting for me. Her eyes locked on mine, and I didn't need to say a word. She just nodded. "You see now, don't you?" she whispered. I nodded, clutching Noah tight to my chest. He squirmed, restless, as if he could sense something clinging to us. Mrs. Whitaker rose slowly, joints popping, and led me inside. Her house smelled of cedar, smoke, and something sharper. Iron, maybe. The walls were lined with shelves of jars, bundles of herbs, old rusted tools. She sat at her kitchen table and began pulling objects from a drawer. A pouch of coarse salt, bent iron nails black with age, a tiny glass vial filled with red liquid that shimmered strangely in the light. They crawl from the crawl spaces, the dark corners. Small things, but old. They slip into homes, take children, drink deep of their breath until there's nothing left but silence. Folk used to call them Tommy knockers. Others called them redcaps. Me, I just call them what they are. Hungry. Her eyes narrowed on Noah, who whimpered softly against me. "You must understand. They don't stop. Your boy has been chosen, and unless you give them a fight, they'll keep coming until he's gone." I swallowed hard, my voice shaking. What do I do? She pushed the pouch of salt toward me. "Lay it across every windowsill, every doorway. They hate what purifies." She slid the nails across the table. "Iron wounds them. Old hand-forged iron, not the store-bought kind. Drive these into the floorboards around the crib. Make a circle. Keep him inside it." Finally, she lifted the vial with trembling fingers and pressed it into my hand. The liquid inside was thick, red and warm, as though it pulsed faintly. This is the last resort. My grandmother's remedy. Blood and rowan root. If it breaches the circle, if it lay hands on him again, you smash this against its skin. It won't kill it, but it'll burn. Buy you time. Her eyes darkened, voice low. Time to run. Noah began to cry then, a shrill wail that echoed through the little kitchen. Mrs. Whitaker's hands shook as she reached out and touched his forehead gently. She whispered softly, "Such a strong one. No wonder it wants him." I pulled Noah back, clutching him tighter. Something in her tone chilled me. When I left her house, the bag of salt and nails felt impossibly heavy. The vial throbbed like a heartbeat in my pocket. That night, as I laid the salt, drove the nails, and whispered prayers I hadn't spoken in years, I knew two things with absolute certainty. The gnome would come back, and when it did, I'd be ready. That night, I worked like a woman possessed. Salt lined every window, every door. The nails hammered into the nursery floor until my arms ached. And Noah, my sweet boy, I placed him inside that iron circle as though it were the only safe place in the world. Daisy prowled the room, pacing and sniffing, but quieter now, almost reassured. For the first time in days, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we had a chance. Hours dragged by. The house settled into uneasy silence. No scratching, no whispers, just the faint hum of the baby monitor and Noah's steady breathing. I stayed awake, sitting cross-legged on the nursery floor with Daisy curled beside me, my ears strained for the sound of claws on wood, of laughter in the static. But nothing came. Midnight passed, then 1, then 2. At some point my eyes grew heavy. Against my better judgment, I let them close. When I woke, ray dawn light spilled through the curtains. Noah still slept peacefully in his crib, tiny fists tucked beneath his chin. Daisy stirred, stretching with a groan. For the first time since moving into that house, the nursery felt ordinary, safe. I laughed, quiet, shaky, but real. Relief washed over me like cool water. Maybe Mrs. Whitaker had been right. Maybe salt and iron did keep it out. I even dared to hope we might be free of it. But as I bent to pick Noah up, I noticed something. The salt line by the nursery door, where I'd poured it thick and unbroken, was scattered, disturbed, as though something had dragged a finger through it in the night. And on the wood just beyond that broken line, 3 tiny footprints, bare, wet, leading away toward the crawlspace vent. The hope drained from me in an instant. It hadn't left. It had only been testing. I couldn't sit still after what I'd seen. The footprints haunted me, small, wet marks trailing toward the crawlspace vent, as if the thing had walked freely through my house. I bundled Noah in a blanket, slung the diaper bag over my shoulder, and called for Daisy. She padded close to my side, ears back, eyes locked on the floor as if she too remembered. Mrs. Whitaker's house stood quiet when I arrived. Too quiet. The curtains were drawn, the air heavy with the smell of burning sage. I knocked once, twice. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, Mrs. Whitaker was hunched over her kitchen table, a row of candles burning low. She didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she looked tired. The salt held. The nails held. But it was in the house, Mrs. Whitaker. It touched the lines. It left footprints, I said. She finally looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw pity in her eyes. Or guilt. Then it's learning. They always do, she said softly. You told me the circle would keep him safe. Mrs. Whitaker's hands shook as she snuffed one of the candles with her fingers. I told you it would buy you time. I never said it would keep him safe forever. My stomach dropped. You knew. You knew it would come back. Mrs. Whitaker leaned closer, her voice a whisper sharp as broken glass. They don't stop, child. Not unless they get what they want. That's why the old ways never speak of beating them, only surviving them. I clutched Noah tighter. What aren't you telling me? For a long moment, she said nothing. Just stared at the boy in my arms, her wrinkled face drawn with something I couldn't name. Finally, she whispered, there is another way, but it is cruel, a bargain of sorts, one life given to spare another. Her eyes flicked toward Noah, then toward Daisy, who stood growling at her feet. Horror spread through me like ice. You think I'd... Mrs. Whitaker cut me off, her voice sharp, urgent. I don't think, girl. I've lived it. That's why I have no children of my own. The room tilted around me, my knees nearly gave. Mrs. Whitaker softened then, laying a trembling hand on mine. You don't have to choose yet. But you must understand. It will force you. They always force the choice. I tore my hand away, clutching Noah to my chest until he cried out from the pressure. Daisy barked, teeth bared at the old woman. I stumbled back toward the door, my voice breaking. I won't sacrifice him. Not for anything. Mrs. Whitaker didn't move to stop me. She only watched as I fled, her silhouette swallowed in the candlelight. But as the door shut behind me, I heard her final words drift after me, heavy as a curse. Then may God help you, child. Because nothing else will. The house met me in silence when I returned. Too much silence. No creak of the porch boards. No hum of the fridge. Even Daisy's paws sounded muffled on the floorboards, as though the air itself had thickened. I locked every door, checked every window, redrew the salt lines, my hands trembling as I poured. But deep down, I knew it was already here. The first blow rattled the walls just past midnight. A thud from inside the crawlspace, violent enough to shake dust from the ceiling. Daisy exploded into barking, hurling herself against the nursery vent. Then came the second blow, closer, louder. The nails in the floorboards trembled, quivering like compass needles pointing toward something buried below. The baby monitor hissed, then screamed, a shrill, high-pitched wail that cut through my bones, and beneath the static, giggling, thin, hungry, scratch, scratch, scratch. Not just beneath the crib now, everywhere, in the walls, the ceiling, the floor beneath my feet. And then claws punched through the drywall, 5 pale fingers curling, tearing. They dragged downward, splitting plaster like wet paper. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen, a small flashlight, and the vial from my pocket, clutching it so hard the glass bit into my palm. "Not him," I whispered. "You can't have him." The gnome's voice hissed through every vent, every crack in the wood. "Mine, mine, mine." The salt lines burst like wind scattering sand. One by one, my protections fell. Daisy lunged at the broken wall, teeth snapping as Noah wailed in his crib. I spun, heart hammering, because I knew this was no longer about holding it back. It was about surviving the night. Then all of a sudden everything went quiet. Daisy returned to my side, still growling, eyes still locked on the wall where the hands had been. Just as sudden everything went quiet, the house began to shake. The floor gave way beneath me with a deafening crack. I had just enough time to shove Noah's crib away from the splintering boards before the wood collapsed. I plunged into the dark, landing hard, ribs jolting, the stink of rot and copper thick in my nose. The crawlspace swallowed me whole. Daisy dropped beside me, snarling, one paw dragging. Above, Noah wailed, muffled by the ceiling boards. I scrambled to my feet, knife trembling in my grip. My flashlight beam cut through the black, and what it revealed turned my stomach. The crawlspace walls weren't wood anymore. They bulged, pulsed, like flesh sewn into the beams. Bones hung in clusters, bird skulls, cat skeletons, even a baby's bonnet swaying from a nail. And in the center, crouched like a spider, was the gnome, its wet black eyes glimmering, its teeth too many for its grin. Its pale hands dragged furrows through the dirt as it rose. "My house," it hissed. "My child." I raised the knife. My knees wanted to buckle, but my voice came out low, raw. "Not tonight." It leapt, a blur of claws and teeth. I slashed, the knife biting its shoulder. Black blood sprayed, hot and foul. It shrieked, snapping into my forearm, teeth ripping flesh. I screamed, drove the vial which had broken during my fall into its eye. Glass burst, ichor spraying. The gnome flailed, claws raking across my ribs. Daisy launched onto its back, tearing its neck. The gnome screeched, slammed her against the wall. She yelped, collapsed, but still growled, still tried to rise. It turned on me again, grinning, mouth unhinging wide enough to swallow my face. I stabbed upward, knife into its throat. It choked, but didn't stop. Its claws dug into my chest, pinning me. And then, a voice rang out in the dark. "Leave her, devil!" The flashlight beam shifted, revealing Mrs. Whitaker, crawling down through the broken boards, crucifix in one hand, rosary in the other. My heart stopped. Mrs. Whitaker. She looked different. Her eyes burned with fury. "I told you," she whispered. "It doesn't forgive, but neither do I." The gnome shrieked, recoiling from her crucifix, which was covered with blood and rowan root. Its claws loosened on my chest. Mrs. Whitaker rushed forward and pressed the crucifix to its face. Flesh sizzled, smoke curled. The gnome screamed, thrashing, its eye boiling in its socket. "You'll take me like you took my children," she spat, her voice breaking. "Take me and leave them be." The gnome lunged at her, abandoning me. Its claw sank into her chest, tearing deep. She didn't flinch. She wrapped her arms around it, pulling it tight against her. Light flared from the crucifix, blinding white in the crawl space. The gnome shrieked, clawing, biting, but she held fast, whispering prayers through blood-choked lips. "Go," she rasped to me. "Take the boy. Take the dog. Go." And then, both of them collapsed into the dirt, swallowed by the shadows. The light flickered out. The crawl space fell silent. I staggered forward, knife shaking in my grip. But the gnome was gone. So was Mrs. Whitaker. Only blackened soil remained, scorched in the shape of two bodies entwined. Daisy limped to me, pressing her head against my leg. Above, Noah cried, "Alive, safe," I sobbed, pressing my bloody hand to my mouth. Mrs. Whitaker had saved us, given herself to drag that thing back where it came from. But in my heart, I knew the truth. Sacrifices don't kill monsters like that. They only buy time. And when the scratches returns, it'll be my turn. And that was the crawl space. Some houses carry secrets. Some secrets wear faces. And some faces should never be seen in the dark. If you made it this far, thank you for stepping into the shadows with me tonight. Don't forget, creatures like the one under Emily's house aren't always confined to stories. Sometimes, all it takes is a quiet giggle in the night to remind you they're still listening. If you enjoyed this tale, make sure to like, subscribe, and join me again for more Nights of Dread. Until then, keep your doors locked, your crawl spaces sealed, and your lights burning bright. Because once they know your name, they never really leave.